All right, time for another important calculator feature. Again, under test, and for the next, probably 3 chapters. Just about every new calculator feature you get is going to be under test. Okay. Before I do that, let's go to edit, because I'm going to show you the one sample t interval. And I have the data from the example on your notes, with the toilet paper being used to absorb a fourth a cup of water. It's on the PDF document that's right just a little bit above the link to this tutorial. To do this one and follow along, you're going to need the data in. So there's 18 pieces right now. You can see 7. Okay. If you want to pause and put those in, I can scroll it down. There's the next 7 if you wanted to pause here. But the first one I'm going to show you is going to be in data mode. So this is one where all we have is the data. And there's 15 to 18. Okay, so take a moment. Again, pause if you need to. Make sure you have that data in and ready to go. Once you do, we're over to test, and then we're scrolling down. I wish it said one sample. It just calls it a t interval. Any test where it doesn't say like 1 or 2, you can assume it would say one sample. Okay, if it was like a 1 proportion, the calculator feature says that. So I'm going to click that, and I'm going to make sure that I am in. Well, let's start here before I switch over to data mode. This isn't going to work. To use stats mode, you have to have X bar and S, which would be the mean and the standard deviation of your sample. And for this particular problem, it didn't give it to us. All it gave us was the data that was collected, which is fine. Data mode. I look down here and see that it's going to go and get the data from list 1, which is where we put it. Frequency can just be left as 1. And again, I'm staying consistent with the problem as it was written in your notes, that the confidence level is 99. And then we hit calculate, and we have tons of good information. Right up top is the interval. Okay, hang on to that for your do step. There's X bar and S to show how our interval was constructed in the do step. We want that. Okay. N is 18. I wish it would say it here just as a reminder. This interval was calculated with 18 degrees of freedom. So don't forget to go to the B table in your packet to get that critical value. Okay. One other thing with this, okay, because that's the test feature is intended to be pretty quick and easy, that if you can find the right test and you get your data in, it gives you just about everything you need to do the number crunching. But in this 4 step, I have a sample of 18, which is less than 30. I think I put together a tutorial sometime in chapter 1, but in case I didn't, we could very easily go and make a box plot to verify the normal condition and check that there's no skews or outliers in the sample. If I go to second stat plot, or second y equals, I'm just going to double check plot number 1. I see that it's on. I'm set to a box plot, and it's going to get my data from list 1. So that all looks good. So I'm going to get out of there. And I go back to the magic button. Zoom 9. Okay. So if it is an interval where you're in data mode and you have to make the box plot, just double check your settings under stat plot, because you're already going to have the data in to do the interval. So it really should just be zoom 9. Getting that box plot should be very, very quick and very simple. Okay. Here it looks like the left tail is a little bit longer, But all you would do under your normal condition is to copy down that box plot and say, there doesn't appear to be any major skews or any outliers. All right, let's head back to test. Okay, I'm going back to our t-interval. But the second example you had was in stats mode. Okay, this is the hours of homework done by students in the previous week. Okay. Different scenario here. In this problem, we weren't given any data. We were given two really important statistics, that the mean hours of homework was 10.2 and the standard deviation of that sample was 4.2. Okay. That's going to factor into degrees of freedom. This is going to use 249, and it said to use the confidence level of 0.95. Okay. The box plot thing under stats mode isn't going to happen because we don't need it to. 250 is way over 30, so even if the population's not normal, our sampling distribution will be. And from there, we go to calculate. And there we have it. We have the interval. And so it displays the exact same information. When I was in data mode, X bar and S, that had some value to it because, you know, that those numbers were going to show up in our do step. So here it gives you the same info. It's like, yeah, whatever. We already knew those, and we knew the sample was 250. But the huge deal up top is you get your interval. Okay. Now, when you're showing your work in your do step, you got to be careful on this one because I always recommend using the calculator to construct the interval. But this was constructed with 249 degrees of freedom. Okay. Your table doesn't have 249. So if you want to use this particular interval as your answer in the do step, when you're showing your work, you just need to remember for the critical value to just leave it as T star. Don't put in a number. Right? If you were to go off of the next highest degrees of freedom, it would be 100, which I think is like 1.984. Don't put in that number, right? Because if you did, then you have to use 100 degrees of freedom and you would have to construct the interval yourself. I would say don't do that. Use the calculator, use 249, right? And it's really simple. If you go off the calculator, use that interval, and then you go to the table, and stick with sample size -1 for your degrees of freedom. And if you don't find that degrees of freedom in the table, then just leave the critical value as T star.